Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is games leaving the collection for the month of July. I wasn't exactly sure what or which video will be going up right now because I owe you a full collection purge video. I owe you a full going through absolutely everything now that I've moved, now that I'm still sorting and organizing and all those things. The problem is I'm not ready to do that yet. There's still 2 or 3 shelves that need to go up. Games are still in way too many different areas of the house. So for right now, you have a regular old games leaving the collection update. Though maybe next month we'll have a full purge. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Also, general notes before we dive into this video, because few notes for those who don't watch all those things. Number one is I'll be getting rid of a bunch of games today. Some of those are games that are in my collection or were in my collection. Some are games that I tried and chose not to add to my collection. But either way, I'll be getting rid of a bunch of these games. And if you are a member over on Ko-Fi, over on Patreon, I do go ahead and give away some of those games over there. So if you are a Patreon or Ko-Fi member, you have the opportunity to get free games. I post over there and I give these away. So that's a little note over there. Secondly is general note around the series in general, which is I play a lot of new games every single year. I play 300 plus new games every year, which means inherently I can't keep most of those, even if they are great games that I really enjoy. The nature of me choosing what to keep or not to keep is often based off of which games I think will set the table most. Do I have a better or worse game in there that I think might be played more often, whatever it is? Well, better game that I think might be played more often. But I can't keep everything, which means games will leave. Frequently, you might even see me give a game a 4 to 5, and then before you know it, 3 weeks later, it's leaving in one of these video series. That does happen. It's not a reflection on the game. It's a reflection on the amount of time I have to play the games I love versus the new games there. So take that what you will as far as what this collection, as far as what this video series does. And I'll say I have another video series I recently started where I talk about the games being added to my collection every month, which games I played that were new that I chose to make an addition to my collection. You can check out that series as well. With that, let's go and dive into this, starting off with the first on this list, which is actually a game that I haven't really played. This is going to be Chocolate Factory. I've had this for a long time and I've never gotten a table. I've consistently wanted to get a table, consistently haven't gotten a table, and I realize when I look at the various games that are on my list to play, this is just lower down on that list. Not like the lowest of the low, but it's a game that I don't see myself prioritizing anytime soon. So as much as I do want to play it, I also know it's on Board Game Arena, which means if I do want to play it, I also have that mental mind game of well, I can just play it on Board Game Arena whenever I want. And so this is the only unplayed game on this list being leaving today. In general, unplayed games, I try not to get rid of them because I got them for a reason. I want to table and I want to play them. In the case of Chocolate Factory, I just don't think it's happening anytime soon, and so this one will leave. One I've been pushing off getting rid of for a while is going to be Fit to Print from Flat Out Games. Flat Out Games and AEG as distributor. This is Fit to Print, and Fit to Print is a real-time game where you're basically trying to assemble a newspaper over the course of 3 days. I think it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're assembling the newspaper. It's larger each round. You're trying to be mindful of different scoring objectives, trying to be mindful of the various things. It's kind of like a cross between Galaxy Trucker and Calico or Cascadito, any of those games. It has that real-time frantic grabbing element as you assemble things and score. This one I kept for a long time because I like Flat Out Games games. In fact, Nocturne just delivered today, but as much as I like these games, Fit to Print is the one I like the least, I think, in the series. I still think it's a good game. I've still had fun with it, but the real-time element does feel a bit gimmicky. I tend to not love real-time games, Project Elite being a notable exception, and I like Fit to Print, but I almost always would play Calico or Cascadia or Nocturne over these games, and so for me right now, unfortunately, this is going to leave because I just don't think it's going to get prioritized in a very competitive, which games are getting my time kind of situation. A small box game we're going to go to, in fact, let's do a few small box games now, is going to be, Paper App Dungeon from Lucky Duck Games. This is a fine concept. I thought the game itself was a little too messy. Didn't really enjoy it. You can check it out at my 6 games, one of my 6 small box game review series. In fact, I believe we also had Tether in there as well. Tether is a little game of trying to place cards on the table to connect them horizontally or vertically, depending on which player you are. Trying to score as many points as possible by creating longer horizontal or wider vertical. Am I doing it right? Or wider horizontal, longer? One of those two things. You're trying to create your system to have more whenever you measure the square. It's a little more complicated than that. But either way, the basic idea is you place cards down, you chain them based on numbers, you try to be mindful of your opponent and how they can take advantage. I think it's a fine game. I thought it was a little too procedural. Wasn't necessarily for me. We also have Fox in the Forest, which I think was okay. I played Fox in the Forest years ago, like a long time ago. I want to say I played it in 2014? No, that couldn't be right. Couldn't be right. It had to be later than that. No, maybe it was 2014. I may have played this back in 2014. I don't know. I played this a long time ago, but I then got it back recently to try it again because I've heard good things about it, and I was like, maybe my first impressions was wrong. My first impressions, I wasn't too enthralled with it. And my subsequent impressions is I'm still not too enthralled with it. So, Fox in the Forest, it's a fine game. It's a fine trick-taking game. I prefer other trick-taking games instead. Fox in the Forest is falling, Tether's falling out of the box over there. We also have Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs. This is going to be designed by Joe Cliffel, put out by Stuffware. Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs is adorable. It's also also not for me. I think it's a fine game. I think for me, I'd rather play Jaws of the Lion if I'm looking for an accessible Gloomhaven experience. This to me takes some of the core elements of Gloomhaven that work really well, but by the nature of compromising it, by the nature of trying to put it into a small box, making it travel friendly, making it even more accessible, they took away a lot of the magic of the game for me. I think Jaws of the Lion does an excellent job of being an introductory Gloomhaven. I think this is great for those who really want their Gloomhaven fixed at all times and places and want a really travel friendly version. I don't know if I'd recommend it on its own merits. It's just specifically if you want a micro game and you're willing to compromise on the Gloomhaven experience, that's where I think Buttons and Bugs shines. We also have Cascadito over here. I debated on this one. I wasn't sure whether to keep this one or not because I like Cascadito. This is like, I don't know, roll my games. The tricky part is I have so many games, this goes back to what I said at the beginning of this video, where I have so many games that really pull me in that even games that I enjoyed, it's not enough all the time. And Cascadito very much has that problem. This is a game that's, it's good, it's just not necessarily enough. It builds upon what Cascadero, its older brother, does, has the same general gameplay. You're going to be rolling dice, trying to create little, send your envoys out to various spots, scoring points or tracks as you get next to various chaining cities effectively. Gives you a public and private scoring goals, and it gives you 4 different boards to go through with different ways that they'll all play out. I think it's totally fine. I enjoy it. I have too many rolling rights, and so this one to me is it's a good one that I'm not going to prioritize. We also have Medici over here, another Reina Knizia title actually, although different publisher entirely, different system, just different everything. Just happened to be 2 Reina Knizia games here. Any other ones for Reina? Not today. But Medici is a clean auction game. I think this is a fine auction game. I enjoy Medici. I would happily play it with you anytime, but it's not one I need to own. For me, I'd rather have Ra. I have Ra. It's on the shelf like right over there off camera. Ra is going to be a more rewarding version of what Medici brings to the table. It's got a little more convoluted in some ways. The scoring, the bidding principle is very similar to what Medici is doing, and I just think there's a lot more gameplay depth to what you're trying to do in the game. So overall to me, both fine games, but Ra to me is the keeper, and Medici is the, hey, I'll happily play this whenever you want, but I don't feel the need to own this one myself. We also have over here, we have Dog Park and Dog Park New Tricks. This is going to be the two, well, Dog Park and Dog Park New Tricks. Now, base game and expansion coming to you from Birdwood Games. I think Dog Park is a lovely, charming game about dog walking that is a little bit on the lighter side for my personal tastes. This one I think is a little too, like, for me, I'd rather play Parks over this. They fall into the same nature vibe, although one's pets, one's nature, although Parks was a bit meaner in terms of what you can do, which is why I also find it more tactically satisfying, more strategically satisfying, not tactically satisfying. Dog Park is fine, and the expansion New Tricks does even more things that makes Dog Park better in my opinion. It still, I think, is in a lighter weight class, and also doesn't help that I'm not really a pet person, so the pet theme doesn't push me away, but it doesn't really pull me in. You know, you can see Calico has a pet theme, and I like that one. I do like cats. I am a cat person, I'm not a dog person. Then we have Living Forest over here. Living Forest is a tough one for me because I loved my first play of Living Forest. I loved it. I was so enthralled by it. But this is a game that the more I played it, the more the game felt very similar. It didn't feel like I was, you know, finding new ways to play. I was just doing the same thing again and again and again. And that to me is very quickly a death knell for any game. I love Living Forest. I played this on BGA. I immediately bought it like the next week and then played it more and was like, you know what? Honestly, it's a good game. I'm happy I tried it. I'm happy I got it. But this is one where, like, you know, 5 plays later, I'm like, I kind of feel like I've seen everything that this game is going to do. And so Living Forest, now there is an expansion, and I did debate, I always have this debate, do I hold off, do I get the expansion? I might try it on BGA with the expansion, so that's possible. Maybe this stays on the games leaving the collection shelf until I actually try it on BGA. We'll see, I don't know. I'm always hesitant to hold on to things for the potential future, although like an expansion that might come out is different than an expansion that's already out. So there is that going for it, but that's going to be Living Forest over here. Then we also have Find Finley. Find Finley is going to be, this is a smaller box game from Fat Brain Toys Co. over here. Find Finley, have I reviewed this? Wait. I don't know if I reviewed this yet. This needs a review because this is a review copy. Either way, I'll double check if I review this and find out first. But in the meantime, Find Finley. Find Finley over here is a game of basically deductively with combination of cards trying to figure out what's going on in these various puzzles you're going through. To me, it's very similar, and I know it wasn't the best description, but you have like a park over here, you have a little process, you're going to be looking at things. It's almost a little bit of a combination of micro macro combined with, oh my gosh, there's a puzzle series. The Key, okay? The Key is a series from Haba. If you combine those two games, that's kind of what Find Finley is. The problem is it does both of those things worse. The combination of clues you get are a little more obtuse, a little less clever, and the micro-macro aspect is not as satisfying to go through. So Find Finley over here was a good concept, but the execution unfortunately did not work out well for me because there's just other games that I prefer that do either of those things better. So for me, this one was unfortunately a pass. And then the last one, the one I really debated over here, in general, I'm going through these videos over here, I'm trying to figure out which games are simply not entering my collection, which frankly is most of these, In fact, Chocolate Factory is leaving, but realistically, Chocolate Factory is a game that it's a game that never really entered because I had never played it, and I consider it entering my collection once I've played it, once I've made the decision that I want to own it. Living Force entered my collection, so that one's leaving. We also have Fit to Print is leaving. The rest of them I don't think ever really entered my collection. Cascadito I debated, but not really. Ultimately, for me, though, the last one that was in my collection and is leaving is going to be Wyrmspan. And I debated this one heavily. I did debate, because Wyrmspan, I think, is a better version of Wingspan. And it's a very good game. Ultimately, I still think, and I covered this in my review, like this is an example. I gave this a 4 out of 5. I like Wyrmspan. I think it's good. But ultimately, I think that when I compare this to other games that have card comboing in a variety of ways, I still prefer the other games. To me, Wingspan is clearly better than Wyrmspan. All the way around. Wyrmspan is clearly better than Wingspan to me. Not necessarily for everyone, but to me. I think it does a lot of things better. I think the chaining is more satisfying. I think there's more gameplay replayability. I think the dragons are a lot of fun. The way everything just feels better about the game system. But I still rather play Everdell. I'd still rather play Evenfall. I'd still rather play Vindication. I'd still rather play any of these other card comboing games where you're trying to find the right combination of all these cards that play to your favor. So as much as I enjoy Wyrmspan, when I'm trying to be self-critical, because there's so many, there's like, what's it called? There's that other Wayfarers game? No. Dice placement one. What's the dice placement called? Dice placement from Garfield. It's called something of the something. That's not the best title. Either way, there's a lot of card combo-y satisfying games. Wyrmspan is one of them, but it's a little lower on the list for me compared to those others. And that's what we have over here. 12 games leaving my collection, 3 of them leaving my collection, and the rest of them just games that never really entered because I decided that I don't need to own those games. And that's basically this video. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.